And good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Hoops HD Under the Radar. Is that the right show for tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Hoops HD Under the Radar, the podcast where we focus in on all the teams outside of the major multi-bid conferences. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. Joining me, as always, both John Salika and David Griggs. David, live from Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Yeah, real exciting night here going on. As you can see just behind me here, Middle Tennessee has just gone up 24 points late in the second half over their crosstown rivals, Vanderbilt. We will get to them in a second, but this is not an anomaly. This is not the first time they've looked really good this year. In fact, they've looked really good just about every game they've played, and we really like them. It's great to be here in person.
So you're in a Murfreesboro. So which Rena Center did you sneak into?
Yes, I'm in the arena.
David, I don't see any basketball going on behind you.
Well, I'm kind of in one of the special parts of the arena.
You mean like the Eagles jail they used to have at Veterans Stadium?
Something. Well, not exact. No. I'm not letting that happen to me again. I'm not going back to any more Eagles games.
I don't think you're allowed in the state of Pennsylvania anymore, are you? Not after that.
Well, I got to be careful. I got to be careful when I enter the state.
Regrettable incident, David. Just remember that.
Well, David is going to keep us up to date on the game, the last few minutes of it as we are recording here, as he's watching it maybe over his shoulder or through the jail bars or something. But what we do on this podcast is we do go through the under the radar conferences. Those are the conferences that are not the Power 5 conferences nor the Big East. We've also do not discuss the American Athletic, Atlantic 10, or the West Coast Conference, which are multi-bid conferences or likely multi-bid conferences. And John, we don't discuss the Mountain West either for some reason.
Probably for their own good.
Yeah, we just don't know what to do with the Mountain West this year. They are still not under the radar, though they're heading that way soon.
Yes.
To the extent that anybody's also in the top 25 from these smaller conferences, they're not technically under the radar. Not true for anybody in these conferences at the moment. Could change with Middle Tennessee's performance tonight.
Yeah, very. In tonight and for most of the year.
And if they continue on their track, also watch out for Valpo to possibly get some top 25 votes.
Yeah.
Could happen.
Some, although they didn't look at last night. Good grief.
Well, what we do like to do is get the up on the screen here, which will come from 1 second, all of the teams and their records and lots of information. And we've actually got a new format we're doing it in. We'll see how this works out. But as you can see here, we've got tons of information here. I've got Conference USA up on the screen right now. We are showing you here both their overall record, their D1 record, the current RPI, the current KenPom rating, Sagarin rating, strength of schedule, adjusted offense and defense, any other stats that we're missing here?
I'm not sure about missing, but I would question that luck factor of 347 showing up for Florida Atlantic, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Yeah, I think that's one of the KenPom ratings there, the luck. I've always kind of found it interesting. It kind of rates, how a team has done versus what their offensive and defensive ratings say they should have done. And actually what that's saying is that Florida Atlantic should be a lot better than their 3-5 record.
Right.
47.
Yeah, they had a big night the other night. Real big surprise win at Ohio State. And the thing is, it wasn't like Middle Tennessee or one of your good under-the-radar teams making a statement win for themselves. It was – I would call this a fluke. I would. I'm sorry, Florida Atlantic. It was a big night. I'm not a believer that they're going to be a real player in this conference, much less banging on the door of the NCAA tournament.
And if we see coming up right here in half a second, we can actually see what Florida Atlantic has done so far in addition to that overtime win. They lost by 8 points to Hofstra, 1 point to Tennessee Martin, 1 point to Hawaii. There's your luck factor, John. All these 1 point losses.
And I believe that was part of the season opening Rainbow Classic at Hawaii's campus.
Yeah, that was that part of the midnight marathon game there that lost to Hawaii. Aside from Florida Atlantic, though, David, let's turn to the top of Conference USA and what this Middle Tennessee State team is doing. We can make that 9-1 overall in about a minute from now, and it will be by the time anybody's watching this podcast. Manhandling Vanderbilt tonight.
Manhandling Vanderbilt, and I know they're at home. It's a crosstown opponent. There's a little bit of heat between the two, so you could chalk it up to that if it were an isolated incident. But this is not. Middle Tennessee has played a pretty good schedule. I know that there's not a whole lot of super brand names on here, but there are a lot of good teams on here. Murray State, typically pretty good, won that one. The one loss coming at home to Tennessee State, kind of a surprise. Toledo, we like them in the MAC. We'll talk about them later. Wilmington, I like them as a possible French bubble team, one of the better teams in the Colonial. They got that win. Beating Ole Miss badly at Ole Miss. Ole Miss only has 2 losses on the year so far. And now blasting Vanderbilt tonight. And if you look at what they have coming up, right now they are in the midst of I think, 8-game stretch where 7 games are away from home. If they pick up all of these, I don't. There's no way you can't think of them as a tournament caliber team.
Yeah, at Belmont. Belmont is going to be one of the top teams in the Ohio Valley, we still think. At VCU, who we still think might be a tournament contender, although they haven't played up to what we think they're going to play this year.
They've had a bad week.
Looking back at this win on December 3rd over South Alabama, I believe that that's one of the top teams in the Sun Belt this year as well.
Yeah, and it's
on the road.
Alabama's only home loss, and I think only their second loss on the year. So these are the kinds of games, and if you don't think it's tough to win these kinds of games, ask Indiana, ask Louisville. These are not easy games to win. These kinds of games, against the top, under the radar teams, it's hard to go up against these teams and win on the road.
John, I do want to bring up one other team here in Conference USA, and that's the Rice Owls here. They lost a heartbreaker against Texas Tech that they completely blew. Also lost a 3-point game against Texas Southern. But is there a pulse here with this Rice team this year for the first time since about 1922?
I want to say it's been about 20 or 30 years since they've been to the NCAA tournament. I mean, we can also check with our resident historian, Kyle Lamb, as far as that goes. As I've said earlier, that loss to Texas Southern kind of soured me early on, although I like how they've rebounded since then, the game at Texas Tech notwithstanding.
Yeah, and David, how did they lose that game at Texas Tech? For anybody that missed it, I think you did a great job describing it the other night. I'll let you do that again.
Well, essentially, they fell on their face and then hit their head as they were getting up and fell again. It was just It was a back-and-forth game. It was actually a really well-played game, really exciting game against a Texas Tech team that looks pretty good and is really tough at home. They had a 2-point lead, them being Rice. Texas Tech had the ball, and there's that whole debate as to whether or not you should foul when you're up 3. Rice decided to foul when they were up 2 as Texas Tech was shooting a 3 with about a second to go. Texas Tech hits all 3 free throws and wins. It was just, oh, what are you doing? I think I yelled that at the television when I was watching it.
I do still think that this Rice team can be a serious contender here in Conference USA. Not maybe Middle Tennessee's range and not that large bid type of team, but they could be there if Middle Tennessee slips up in the conference tournament. If they do end up rolling through the conference, this could be the team that steals a bit out of this league.
And meanwhile, we have a final score in Murfreesboro. It's Middle Tennessee 71 and Vanderbilt 48.
Yes, I was just about to. They have gone final. We have gone final here in Murfreesboro.
David, are you going to go get us an interview?
I will. I probably after the show. Yes.
Oh, after the show. I thought maybe you get somebody on your couch with you right now with an interview. But
oh yeah, well the couch. I mean, don't be cool.
I know what that is now, Chad. That's the comfort couch they use in the spelling bee. So you might get some Vanderbilt interviews here.
We do want to go through the rest of the conferences here, the under the radar conferences. So let's go back in through alphabetical order here. We're going to start in the America East, where we talked about them for a couple of weeks now, but UMBC still putting together a great record against garbage competition, 7-1 overall. David.
Yeah, well, and again, it's a good record against garbage competition, but let's assess it fully. All kidding aside, this was a garbage program. I mean, this was a sub 300 program, sub 330 program for the last few years. So is it really bad that they decided to schedule winnable games? Because this was a program that couldn't beat anybody. So, yes, they're playing garbage, but at least they're winning against it and getting a sense of accomplishment. And this might be the beginning of the building process. I don't know what they're going to do once they get into conference play, but I probably know what they're going to do Saturday at Richmond. They're probably not going to win that one. But 7-1, even against sub-300 teams, good for them, I say.
And they can also say they've been able to do something that the Pitt Panthers were not able to do this year, and that's beat the mighty Dukes of Duquesne.
Yep.
That is true. Also in here, of course, the team of the people.
The team of the people. Big win last night. Their third road win, Chad.
Yeah, 3 road wins, very powerful. They've got another road game coming up this weekend. They're at Bryant, and then they've also got a game at BU after that. Before
Bryant has had some spectacular games this year.
Before the game we've been circling here, first of all, for December 31st against Dartmouth. And David, how are we doing on getting Saturday, December 31st declared a state holiday and state offices closed for that?
Well, I mean, I've called. I've made some phone calls. I meant to tell you this before the show, and they seemed puzzled. They were like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Of course, that's a holiday. So again, I mean,
Wow.
I was underestimating it. I guess they've already declared this a holiday for this big game. I mean, I just didn't realize the movement for the team of the people had taken on that much force yet. Their banner, their NIT championship banners, should be arriving this week.
All right, so we
You
should be
have a
getting
tracking number for that banner.
Somewhere, yes.
so.
We
Look out.
actually sent it. It's on its way.
So, David, next week, will you be up in Durham, New Hampshire, to actually show us the banner live on TV?
Well, I'm going to try, yes. We're actually, if not next week, we're trying to get someone up there to investigate to see if it's anywhere.
We're working on Lee Del Vecchio as well. He's been
we're
supporting us this year.
Yes, we're getting Lee Del Vecchio up there.
John, the Atlantic Sun, Florida Gulf Coast, actually, if you look at these power rating numbers, top 100 across the board with most of them. Best team in the conference?
Best team in the conference right now, and we had also seen on TV earlier in this week, NJIT missed an opportunity to get a win at Minnesota. Although even a team like the Gophers have actually been able to hold off other under-the-radar teams like Texas Arlington, and even to some extent Vanderbilt and Arkansas. Even the SEC in some respects has been under the radar in terms of bids the past few years.
Are you a little surprised at North Florida struggling like they have?
I was just bringing up Gulf Coast schedule here
Gulf
first to show that they've now won 4 in a row, including
Ave Maria.
Ave Maria. But,
Yes.
But they do have a nice win over Arlington already. I think that's kind of helping, and the fact that they've played a really good schedule here.
Yeah, in their losses, Florida, Baylor, and Michigan State, and they were right in there at Michigan State, as you knew. Little bit of a eventful ending. I don't know if I want to say controversial. I know this is under the radar, and we're supposed to focus with them. I actually agreed with with how the game ended. I think they maybe mismanaged it, but ultimately got it right.
David, I got North Florida's schedule up on the screen here now. They have 3 wins, 2 of them being Edward Waters and Florida National.
Yes.
Only D1 win is North Dakota, which is not a very good team. Now, I mean, they've played a few tough teams like Florida and Syracuse and Auburn, but but you got to win the Cal State Bakersfield game. You got to do better.
I mean, they got destroyed by Bakersfield. I mean, gosh. Yeah, I'm a little surprised at how much they've struggled.
I just want to bring up one other team here, and that's the Lipscomb here. They played the Battle of the Boulevard round 2 this past week against Belmont, and once again another heartbreaking loss. They lost by 2 points at Belmont back on November 29th in the game that they led most of the way.
Yeah.
They lost this game in overtime against Belmont, a game that they really had tons of chances to win. Casey Alexander, the head coach for Lipscomb, is now 0-10 or 0-11 against Belmont, coached by Rick Bird, who he was formerly an assistant for. So tons of ties between these programs, and just heartbreak again for Lipscomb.
Yeah, and it is probably I think it's their third loss by 2 points or less. It's Oh boy,
Yeah.
it's
So
gonna get better,
uh,
or maybe it won't.
let's keep going here. Try to move through a few of these other conferences and start with the Big Sky. John, let me throw the Big Sky over to you. Is there anything that you've seen this conference yet that is noteworthy? I'll put it that way.
Well, there's Eastern Washington, who's had a few wins under their belt. Although there was another bit between Idaho and Washington State last night. I believe there was part of some silent raffle that Ernie Kent had won, where he actually got to sit alongside the Idaho coach for the first 30 seconds of that game.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But Eastern Washington, yes, off to a 6-2. Let's talk about that luck rating again. Number 1 in the nation.
Yeah, lucky.
That means that they're not nearly as good as their 6-2 record is. David,
and what about the next team, North Dakota? Really nice win last night against rival North Dakota State on the road. Winning there, getting that one, improving to 5-2. Again, nowhere near the tournament, but I think I like North Dakota more than anybody else from what I've seen in this conference so far.
No, go back to that for a moment, Chad. I want to see that score again against Great Falls.
Yeah. They seem to be up 27-2 in the first half against Great Falls. So
that luck factor really kicking in there.
But again, you look at the luck factor here. You see they've got 2 double overtime wins and a single overtime win. There's your luck factor. That these are games that they probably should have lost in any other day. Actually, look at this. They've played Seattle twice, 2 double overtime wins against Seattle. That's pretty impressive, actually.
On our mock committee this March, if any of these numbers gurus start arguing luck factor, I'm going to start chugging bourbon.
Number 14.
Yeah.
Over the Big South, David, UNC, Asheville, and Winthrop out to the 2 best starts. Anything else in this conference?
Nothing I like as much as those 2. I still really like this Winthrop team. You've got no real centenary contenders, I don't think, though. But
unless you count Longwood and their 351 RPI.
Yeah, but with 2 wins, albeit I don't know. I still don't think they're that bad.
One Division I win.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do have that 351 RPI. You're right, dead last in the nation, although RPI is still not quite meaningful yet this season.
Yeah, it's starting, though. It's starting to take a little bit of shape.
Talk about some lousy RPIs, Dave. Actually, John, let me throw this one to you. The Big West Conference. This conference is looking like it's on its way to Dayton from what I've seen so far.
Yep, on Dayton, and we're not talking about a nighttime playing game, but rather the 7 p.m. time slot. Even Long Beach State has been a disappointment because I think they also got blown out at Florida Gulf Coast along with some of the other big-time programs they've already played.
Yeah, these are not winnable games for Long Beach, but they could be more competitive than what they've been. They've looked no better than some of the SWAC and MEAC teams that go out there and just don't compete at all. Hawaii has been disappointing. I mean, Irvine has shown – I don't know. There's just nothing here. I'm starting to agree with you, Chad. I think this is a conference that might be destined for the 16 line, which is way below what we normally see out of the Big West.
No, yeah, you're looking at a 13-seed Big West normally, maybe 14 on a bad year. You don't see the 15 on the 16 unless something crazy like when Cal Poly won the conference tournament
right, yeah,
like the 7th seed a few years ago. But I just haven't seen anything here at all from this conference that's maybe – want to like a single one of these programs. And you look at their records against D1, the only team that's even 500 is Davis there.
And that season you were talking about is when the conference tournament bracket was completely upside down because of Cal Poly winning.
Yep, I think they came out of the 7th seed to win that conference tournament that
year.
Yeah,
they did. And I want to say it was Santa Barbara that we really liked that year that just got blasted in their quarterfinal game.
Up next, a team that we do – conference with a couple teams that I like, actually. But let's start with this UNC Wilmington team over in the Colonial. Off to a great 7-1 start here.
Yeah. And I was kind of disappointed in them when they lost to Middle Tennessee. And at the time, I don't think I gave Middle Tennessee credit as much as I criticized Wilmington. But still, I still really like them. They've got a big game, big game this Saturday. It was I think that this is is going to be one of their bigger statement wins at St. Bonaventure. The Bonnies only have 2 losses. They just got a nice win at Hofstra. These are both sort of – you can't really call the Bonnies under the radar, but they are a team that's trying to build their profile, as is Wilmington. So that's one of the bigger games that will probably not have a very big spotlight on it on Saturday, but it is hugely important. I might spotlight that one in our write-up. That one's
And we've probably covered it earlier as well, but that East Tennessee State win is a gift that keeps on giving for the Steelhawks.
right. It is.
I want to bring up another team here
That was
I
an
do also.
overtime win too. East Tennessee State looked pretty good. I thought it was overtime.
No, it was regulation, 68.
Oh, it was
regulation.
Eastern Kentucky was okay. Yeah.
But College Charleston did have a 3-game losing streak, but it was to 3 pretty decent teams here in UCF, Wake Forest, and Villanova. Obviously, Villanova, a very good team.
Yeah.
But coming off a very nice win this weekend over Davidson, who gave North Carolina a game the last night. So
Yeah,
Davidson has a pulse.
Yeah, I mean, they did that day. And they ran away from it. They led Davidson the whole game, and Davidson was hanging around, and you kept waiting for Davidson to come back, and then Charleston just really opened it up, looking really good, really in all 3 of their last – I mean, in their last 3 games. I don't know who Anderson is. I'm assuming that's a school.
A Division II team, I think.
Yeah, and then they go to East Carolina, who's been good at home this year. So East Carolina, not a tournament team, but a bit of a home court hero, not the easiest place to win right now.
And a road trip to LSU coming up as well, which could be a winnable game and will at least be a name brand win in their profile here. I'm really liking this Charleston team. We've been saying for a couple of years now what an amazing job Earl Grant has done there after the mess he inherited when he came in as well.
Yeah.
How will the RPI gurus treat the 3 games in the Charleston Classic as home games or neutral games?
I believe neutral because I'd have to look, but I believe it's because the home court is determined by who does the event management. And I think they consider that neutral, I believe.
Well, they are listed here as, well, for some reason they list the UCF game as neutral court, but the other 2 games as home court games according to this website. So I don't know what that means, but again, I'm just looking at what's listed here on ESPN.com.
I see you got a lot of browser windows open there.
Yeah, we can close a few of them down here in a second here, but let's run through a few other conferences. Conference USA we actually already discussed.
Yep.
How about the Horizon League? Valpo is the team we've been focusing in on all season. Let's start right there. Out to a 7-2 start overall.
Yeah.
Very impressive so far. Another team that, despite the Kentucky loss, we didn't really expect them to win that game, though.
Didn't expect them to win. I was a little disappointed when it was 24-4. It's like, this is not going well. But did you expect them to be slightly more competitive, like to maybe keep it within 20?
I think at the rate they're going, you probably would have expected them to be more competitive against Oregon, who has been a disappointment out of the gates.
Yeah, they were for a half, but it was the wrong half.
But
still a good bit of meat here. Wins against Alabama, BYU away from home.
Rhode Island.
Rhodey, at home. So I could make a case for them if they have to, but their margin for error razor thin. When you look at the rest of their schedule, these are all sub-NIT teams. You pretty much need to win all of them.
But I would not overlook their next 2 teams out of the Valley, Missouri State, who's run up a gaudy record, albeit a little padded, and then the Trees of Indiana State, who pulled off the surprise at home against Butler.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second here. I want to discuss whether that was an upset or not, but we'll get to that in 1 second here. Oakland, though, also out to a very impressive overall record here at 8-1. Although I don't think that we are that serious about this team yet, just because they really haven't been anybody of note. Their best win, I don't know, Western Michigan, Anchorage.
Had they been able to beat North Carolina Central, I would have added Northern Kentucky as the list of pleasant surprises out of the Horizon.
Yeah.
Oakland, we'll get to see a lot about them on December 21st at Michigan State, a game that they've won in past years. So, That's become a pretty good rivalry there between a Big Ten and Horizon League team. If you could have a rivalry between those two types.
Yeah, those two play regularly, and they play not entirely on equal terms. I don't think Michigan State's ever gone to their campus, but it is a home-on-home in the sense that Oakland does do the game management. They manage the tickets and everything else when they play it in Detroit. So, good one there.
Or Auburn Hills, I think you meant.
Yeah, Auburn Hills. Thank you. Yeah.
The Ivy League. Talk about disappointing conferences.
Yes, they too might be on their way to glorious Dayton, Ohio, along with the Big West.
Yeah, we really liked Harvard and
Probably
Princeton coming
not,
to
but
this
ooh.
year, and both teams have just not shown me anything at all. Princeton did Princeton win that game against Hawaii last night? I believe they did.
Yeah, they did.
And then Harvard also snapped their 2-game losing streak against Boston College.
Well, beating Boston College.
Yes, Harvard has a win at Boston College, and it does nothing to me to elevate their profile one bit.
Probably not a 16-seeded conference, but this was a league that we thought would get someone inside the bubble, and that just is not going to happen.
Yeah, it's just not there. I keep going back to Oakland's schedule. I don't know why. Okay, let's keep going here. Metro Atlantic. David, the Monmouth Hawks had a couple losses early. I was ready to just kind of write them off as, hey, okay, but with the South Carolina, the Syracuse loss, they have now won 6 in a row since then. And I'm really starting to take notice, and I'm starting to wonder here. They get this win at Memphis. They get the win over Princeton. I'm not assuming they're going to win at North Carolina, but if they can then roll through the conference at maybe 18-2 overall, a 20-game season, do they get some consideration?
18-2 in conference.
And a win at Memphis together with the wins they already have?
Yeah, they'll get consideration. What we've seen from the committee, unfortunately or not, is that they don't really value bulk. You could make a case for them, though. That would involve having to win at Iona, who should be very good at home. They should get some credit for that. But, Holy Cross, Quinnipiac, Wagner, these are teams that even at home aren't that strong. One game, and you hate to harp on this, but when you're an under-the-radar guy like we are, you know this, that loss to South Carolina will really haunt them. That tip-in could make the difference between them getting in at large and not. With that win, the entire complexion of their profile is different.
Now, there was one other change that the Metro Atlantic announced today, and that's that their home game against Iona will be televised on ESPNU on, the 6th of January.
Okay, great.
And we've got that there on the screen already. Look at that. Yeah. There we go. But I guess we may come down to a point here where if they want an at-large bid, they've got to win the game at North Carolina, which is –
yeah, or not lose – make that the only one they lose the rest of the way.
Or at the very least win at Memphis.
Yeah, I don't think they even get 2 strikes. I think they get 1 because, you got to keep in mind the conference tournament would be the 3rd strike.
Right. So. Right. Beyond that, John, is there anybody else that you've taken note of so far in the Metro Atlantic?
One team that did get off to somewhat of a pleasant surprise was Fairfield, although I think we had also noted Iona had quite a surprising loss at home against Niagara, so that's why they're in the bulk of teams that are currently 1-1 in the Metro Atlantic.
See, I'm not that surprised by Iona's loss to Niagara because I did not expect much from this Iona team. In fact, I was surprised by what they went out and did out in the Great Alaska Shootout, so I think Iona's playing back to where I thought they would be this season.
So the Clusing did not surprise you?
The Clusing did not surprise me this year.
Okay.
Mid-American has a couple of teams that we've been really liking so far this year, both this Ohio Bobcats and the Akron Zips. David, do you want to address one of them or both of them?
Ohio, I really like their team on the court. The question is their paper going to be there? Do they have the chances? And what is their margin for error? Are they good enough to get outside of it? Can we get that? Okay.
It's coming up, yeah. Going to have to close down some of these extra windows here. I think we're lagging a bit.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, the loss at Marshall, that in and of itself isn't bad. The win at Georgia Tech might be pretty good. Georgia Tech just had a nice win against VCU the other night. this game at Iona on Saturday is big. Now, I know we just got done trashing Iona, or you did, but the Gales are tough to beat at home. And if you're a tournament team, you need to be able to win that one. Without it, where are the wins going to come from? Essentially, like, how if they don't get that one, what's their margin for error? Do they pretty much they would have to win at Akron? What you think?
Well, you need to win at Akron. You've got a couple of teams: Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, Central Michigan, that are all that are all pretty good here. I'm going to close some extra tabs down here for a second, so get this other screen back up. But let's take a quick look here at Akron as well. And John, this Akron team, I still like this team as pretty good, pretty much here. 7-2 so far. So I try to delay as we get this. The only loss, that season opener at Youngstown, and the loss at Creighton. Especially the Creighton loss, I can't fault them for that.
Yeah.
Huge game coming up this weekend.
Yep, the game at Gonzaga, which I think is going to be on their campus. It's not one of the annual games they play in Seattle, if I'm not mistaken. But they also are going to have an opportunity against their former conference foe, Marshall, to get a somewhat significant win.
Yeah, David, even if they lose this Gonzaga game, are there a few more chances here, do you think? A game like that Marshall game coming up still?
I mean, they have chances, but they only if they don't really get any strikes. Like, they really can't stub their toes more than once or twice if they don't win at Gonzaga. I mean, you win at Gonzaga, it completely changes everything.
Well, the problem is already walking around on one foot because of the Youngstown State game.
Yeah, so there's that. I mean, it can be done, but like Ohio, they would pretty much need to run away from the conference.
Well, in the West Division, Central Michigan 8-2 hasn't been overly impressive. I've really been disappointed with everything out of the West, especially with Eastern Michigan.
Yeah, Eastern Michigan's been.
I think we're just as disappointed with their schedules than they are their records.
Exactly. Like, now, Eastern Michigan, I believe, has won 5 in a row after losing their first 3, I think. So maybe they got it turned around a little bit, but is it too little, too late?
And I think we just lost them. We got the MEAC up now instead. So
okay, yeah.
The MEAC,
yes,
North Carolina Central,
and
blowing away the conference.
Yes.
John, is there anybody else? Let's talk about this NC Central team. Is this a team that, if from what you've seen so far, if they can run through the conference, no more than 3 or 4 losses, win the conference tournament?
I did tease one of their wins earlier, which was at Northern Kentucky, and they had also managed to win at Missouri, a little more comfortably than my own Xavier team actually did. But another team that they beat that could be a conference winner is also going to be Long Island Brooklyn.
And I like the way how you gave the Northern Kentucky win more credit than the Missouri win. David, can this team avoid the 16 line if they win the conference tournament? That's going to be.
I think so. Yeah, I think they can, especially when you look at some of the crap that comes out of some of the other leagues. But I don't think anybody else can. But yeah, I think they can.
That's always been the refrain for the MEAC, because there have been years where I think NC Central would have been a 14 seed had they been able to just take care of business in their conference tournament, but couldn't finish the job.
Yeah, NC Central going down a lot. Norfolk State had years where they went down. Morgan State had a couple years, or was it Delaware State?
We do have a few teams here that will definitely be on the centenary list, as we still have 6 teams without a D1 win, 7 teams without a D1 win yet. So we'll see what happens there, including Coppin State, who lost to a non-D1 team earlier this year.
They're the ones I like so far.
Yeah. The Missouri Valley Conference. And let's start at the middle of the conference here with Indiana State. We mentioned that their huge victory earlier. And David, John Rothstein tweeted today that Indiana State beating Butler was not an upset because of how well they played against Iowa State and Stanford. I wish our colleague Lee Delvecchio was on with us right now to respond, but I'll let you respond.
Yes, we tried to get him. Yes, they did play well against Iowa State. They actually kind of blew that game. I'll tell you who's not playing well against Iowa right now, and that's Iowa State. But I don't know. You also got to factor in that they lost to Quinnipiac, who is towards the bottom of the Metro Atlantic. You think about them so little that we didn't even mention Quinnipiac when discussing the Metro Atlantic. And they lost at other Northern Illinois, a team that's kind of at the bottom of the MAC. We think about them so little that we didn't even discuss Northern Illinois when we were discussing the MAC. So that's 2 of their losses. Is it utterly surprising that Butler would lose a road game to Indiana State? No, but let's not say that it was an expected loss. Like, Indiana State has struggled this year too.
Yeah,
I have a feeling that we're probably going to say that the Missouri Valley clearly got the better end of the MVC Mountain West Challenge this year.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and that includes the huge win that Loyola picked up over Steve Fisher's San Diego State team, who also lost to Grand Canyon last night. But
Right.
Loyola off to a very nice start here, though, 8-2, including that San Diego State win. Only losses to St. Joe's and NC State.
Yeah, and they were right in that
Washington
NC State game. They really should have won that one.
And that was part of a 5th place performance in the Paradise Jam tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, no real other chances left non-conference. Only Milwaukee, Illinois, Chicago, and Toledo left. So they're going to have to pick up the wins in conference. But
Yeah. I mean, they're going to have limited chances. Wichita State, they need one of them.
Those are past tense conference opponents, by the way.
Yeah.
And John, this Wichita State team, of course, we have like them best out of everybody so far in this conference. 8-2 with just the loss to Louisville, Michigan State. Huge game coming up this weekend.
Yep, that's going to be coming up against Oklahoma. That's going to be their first of 2 games against Sooner State, because they're also going to have a hard luck Oklahoma State coming up after their final exam period. But we also touched on this earlier. They got a nice win at Colorado State, who themselves were coming off a win against Colorado.
I think they're going to ultimately end up getting a lot of credit for that win. It's nothing that excites the casual fan. Colorado State I think it's their only loss on the year so far, much less their only home loss. And Colorado State's probably going to be a Mountain West frontrunner.
That kind of like says that you beat a Northeast Conference frontrunner, right?
Yeah, it's getting to that point, yes.
But David, let's say they split these 2 Oklahoma games, get that South Dakota State win. Is this team in good shape for an at-large bid at that point?
Yeah, absolutely, I think so. Because especially when you look at the volume of road wins that they're likely to pick up in conference, yeah, I think they're in pretty good shape.
If you follow their roadmap from last year, they're slightly ahead of their pace thanks to at least getting 1 win in their exempt tournament, as opposed to their 0-3 they had last year when Fred Van Vliet had an injury.
Yep.
But again, you had an injury excuse for last year's tournament. You don't have that this year. I mean, no, Fred Van Vliet didn't play this year's tournament either, but
right.
you
got to factor in that Fred Van Vliet
Well, this year they have the excuse of playing Louisville and Michigan State.
Right.
Northeast Conference. John, you brought up this LIU Brooklyn team. Your favorite here?
Probably my favorite here, although I think I would also alluded to Sacred Heart last week for some reason, but we're not going to get into why.
I could just mention right now, Sacred Heart is down 21 points at home to Yale at the moment.
Yeah.
I think we could stop talking about Sacred Heart at this point.
Perhaps Wagner, who won their first game at UConn, and then has lost 5 of the next 6.
Yeah, Wagner. We thought when they won that UConn game that this was a great Wagner team. It wasn't quite that, though.
It's not. It's a rather bad Wagner team. Talking about losses at UMass Lowell, talking about losing at Rider, Monmouth is pretty good, but I mean, there's just not a whole lot happening there.
I mean, just ask Wagner. It's tough to win at Wagner.
Oh, it is. Yes.
Yes. Let's keep moving on here, and the next conference up is the Ohio Valley Conference. Tennessee State, we kind of decided to throw them out almost after they got completely embarrassed against Vanderbilt, but they lost to Vanderbilt. They beat Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee beat Vanderbilt. It's kind of a circular argument here, isn't it, David?
It is, and we're kind of at that point to where of the season to where all arguments end up being circular. Really, really unimpressive game at Vanderbilt, but they did pick up a win at Middle Tennessee. That in and of itself is a very, very good win. If they get this one at NC State, and chances are they're overmatched, but if they do pick that one up, to have 2 wins like that, both away from home, don't you have to pay a little bit of attention to that? Like, they're at least in the discussion right now.
John, you think they can win that game?
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
Do you think they're going to win this game at NC State this weekend?
That's probably going to be their one realistic shot at getting closer to at-large, but I don't think they're going to win at NC State.
David, another team off to a real good start here, Tennessee Martin, although without any of those key wins other than Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, yeah, Florida Atlantic, but still a nice turnaround for this program. I mean, it was just 3 or 4 years ago when this team only won 1 game all year, was in the centenary discussion. Here they are out to I think it's, what is that, an 8-2 start?
Yeah, and they're not big names, but these next 2 games at Illinois State and home against Arkansas State
right,
are against two solid programs.
Yeah, real good teams. Well, Arkansas State is still a team I like, but
and even the game at UMKC, it's a road game against one of the better teams in the league. I think they've got a chance to at least boost some of their power rating numbers if they can run through these games. And I'll start taking notice if they can run through these next 4 games here.
Yeah, if they win their next 4, I don't think they will, but if they do, yeah, they're suddenly right on the map.
And those are accomplishments on the court. If we're talking about teams off the court like Eastern Kentucky and who was it, Morehead State, it has not been a banner year for the OVC so far.
Let's go over to the Patriot League, and I want to bring up Navy's schedule here because of what happened last night in their game against Bryant.
Bryant, a marvelous Northeast Conference team.
Tuesday night, I'm sorry. And Bryant, this is the team that already blew their game against Brown. We highlighted last week.
Yeah, oh, it's just a comedy of errors, and it is a comedy of errors.
But Navy, in this game against Bryant, was down, I believe, 25 points at halftime. It was the second largest halftime deficit comeback in NCAA history, behind a Duke-Tulane game from 1950. That is just an absolutely amazing comeback by Navy in that game to pull it out. Maybe not the biggest comeback overall, but the biggest comeback from a halftime deficit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I remember Kentucky led or trailed LSU by 31 back in the 90s and came back to win, but maybe they weren't down that big in the second half. And
yeah, that's the caveat right there, is that 31 is how far it ballooned in the second half before Kentucky came back.
Okay. So it got I mentioned, okay, that's the difference. So this was the biggest halftime deficit, not the biggest second half deficit.
Right, the biggest halftime deficit, second biggest halftime deficit ever. But
right.
Bucknell, David, out to the best start of this conference. Is this your team to beat with that win at Vanderbilt?
Absolutely, and I mean it's Bucknell and then the other 8 or other 7. I mean, like I really like them. Other nine. I said 9.
Okay.
We need to
we'll edit that. Okay.
Okay.
John, the SoCon, 2 teams that we've really liked so far, both ETSU and Chattanooga.
Yeah, Chattanooga being the preseason favorite, although East Tennessee State has also been pretty consistent, coming off of a pretty good year last year.
How about the Citadel way ahead of their normal 5-win pace?
Yeah, well, let's go through a few of these teams here. Let's start with Chattanooga, the road win, at Tennessee. Disappointing loss to Arkansas State, but they've run off 4 straight in a row here, including decent win over a decent Marshall team, another team that's going to be playing Vanderbilt coming up next weekend.
Yep. I think they're going to win that one.
East Tennessee State, a team that's going to be playing Tennessee. They're going to get Tennessee at home coming up here, but only loss is the game at Wilmington.
That Vanderbilt was not allowed to play outside of their state this year.
A lot of those teams played each other. I kind of like it, but
East Tennessee State only loss was at Wilmington. Huge game coming up at Dayton this weekend.
Huge game, and this is kind of a big game for Dayton too. We kind of talked the other night about how a lot of teams have yet to really make a case for themselves. I don't know how much credit Dayton would get for winning this, but they get some. But they're kind of a fringe team that really could benefit from this win, but really doesn't need to lose this. And it's not going to be an easy game for them to win. East Tennessee State could go up there and beat them.
John, I very rarely highlight wins over non-D1 teams, but for East Tennessee State, this is my biggest concern. Right here, December 1st, Lees McRae, 85-80. They
That was a
almost
game
lost
where they
that.
were trailing for a good
Yeah.
part of the game. I did follow along some of the scores that night, although they've gone through their exam week this week, so that's why there was a break between Limestone and the upcoming Dayton game for Saturday.
Yeah, when you schedule crap like those, you can't be playing Div 2 teams if you're an under-the-radar team.
Or NAIA, whatever they are.
Or whatever they are, yeah.
And Dave, you did mention, Citadel 7 wins, 4 D1 wins with their almost are the number one tempo, the fastest team in the nation. They score a ton of points there. Let's move over to the Southland Conference, where I am actually kind of surprised at how well Corpus Christi has played so far. I did not think this team was going to be very good this year. Sam Houston State right behind them, though, and everybody else is just kind of there.
Yeah, and you got Corpus Christi. They actually didn't look too bad against A&M the other night. I mean, they ended up losing, but they were competitive. I still like Sam Houston to win this league. SFA, just because of their recent history, you can't ever write them off, but they've looked less and less impressive.
SFA did not look very good against UAB last night. Sam Houston State does not have the key win, but they don't have any bad losses either. That's the best thing I can say about it.
Yeah.
So LSU Shreveport is not a big win then.
Nor will be Sul Ross or Randall University, which are coming up in the next couple of weeks here.
Or Laterno.
Laterno. Sam Houston State. Well, you're in the Southland. You might as well pick up some wins, I guess. The SWAC. Texas Southern still stuck on this 4 wins. I don't know that they're going to get that 5th non-conference road win this year to break their all.
Not that it's going to matter.
Right.
But David, is Mike Davis's team here by far your favorite in the conference?
Yeah, by far. By very far.
They actually played a real good game at Southern Illinois. It was a close game. Actually, speaking about Mike Davis, he got teed up with his team down 1 point and about a minute and a half left in the game.
Yeah,
and
tell us this. You had announced this on our little chat room, and I wasn't watching.
He was upset with the call, and I think he was rightfully upset with the call, but you got to be able to restrain yourself, at least not to get a technical when the game is on the line in the final minutes. And that's probably what cost him the game, quite honestly.
So did he allow himself to get angry?
He was a little upset. He wasn't angry Frank angry. He wasn't angry Mike Davis angry.
Yeah.
I think he's just waiting to get the PBS pledge drive of their schedule over with here.
Yeah.
They still got 5 more of those games.
A couple of centenary alert candidates here as well, especially this Alabama A&M team.
Yeah.
Who's one of my favorites.
If you saw what happened to Alabama A&M against Missouri, they would be my centenary favorite right now.
John, what happened to them against Missouri? I'm not that familiar. I'm going to pull up their schedule here so we can take a look at it.
This was a rare game where Missouri was actually blowing somebody out. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh,
Here we go. 99-44 was the score in that game.
that's a sign things aren't going.
Lika doing us proud by actually watching Missouri versus Alabama.
Yeah. Wow. I'm impressed.
A couple more conferences left to go here. The Summit League, we've been talking a lot about this Fort Wayne team for that home win over Indiana. 7-3 overall, David. Anybody else in here that's going to catch him, or is this your team?
I still think it's going to be them in North Dakota State. North Dakota State really disappointing showing the other night at home against rival North Dakota, but I still kind of like them. Fort Wayne just for the majority of this game against Notre Dame, the margin was between 20 and 30. They kind of came to life in the final minutes to make it respectable. I thought it was a game. I wasn't expecting them to win, but I thought that they actually had a chance to. And man, did they just get? I mean, it looked like watching it looked like a normal bye game. It was kind of disappointing, considering how well they had played prior to that.
I don't think Omaha is going to catch Fort Wayne, but we do have to highlight the Mavericks because they snuck into Iowa over the weekend and pulled out a pretty significant win against the Hawkeyes.
Something Iowa State is failing to do.
Yes, Iowa State, as we record this, is about to lose at Iowa. Yet 98-89 victory there by Omaha over Iowa. One of the biggest wins by the program so far, and it's only
Right.
5 or 6 years of existence.
Sixth year.
Yeah, and I like the potential of this Omaha team since we brought them up. I don't think they're going to be front runners this year, but the overall health of that program, I think, is very good.
And if you look at what they've done so far, they have a lot of losses, 5 losses, but at USC, at Kansas State, against the Rice team,
Yeah, they were
at Eastern
in
Michigan, at Iowa State, they don't have any bad losses. So they may be the type of team that, despite not a very big record, may be able to make a run once we get to conference play and
Yeah.
challenge, especially with North Dakota State being pretty disappointing so far.
But nice facility up there. I mean, they got a lot going for them. I think that they're going to do very well.
They're not playing at Century Link as well, are they?
No, they're on campus.
The Sun Belt. I think there's 3 teams here that I've really been looking at in the Sun Belt. Arkansas State, obviously, with a couple of very nice wins already, including Georgetown and Chattanooga. Texas Arlington, and we like heading into the season. And I still like the South Alabama team a bit here.
Yeah, I like them, and I've been impressed with Little Rock too. Little Rock lost virtually everything, including a very good coach in Chris Beard, but out to a 6-2 start, 4-2 against Div 1. You can't really ignore them, and the bottom of this league is pretty bad, but the top 4 or 5 should all be pretty good, don't you think, Chad?
Yeah, you've got. I mean, Little Rock has already beaten Tulsa, which was an NCAA tournament team last year. That's about all I could say about them.
Yeah.
They Bonaventure, we discussed earlier.
Yeah, they
would
did.
also add Georgia State as a team to watch out for because we saw them give Purdue a scare until they were shut out for the final 7 minutes of the game.
Wait, shut out for the final 7 minutes of the game?
Yeah.
that's not exactly good, John.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this Georgia State team did just come off a loss to Mississippi State, has wins over NJIT, Eastern Kentucky.
And those 2 were in Cancun.
We'll see what happens here coming up the next few weeks here with Old Dominion and Middle Tennessee, both on the road.
You're overlooking Georgia Southwestern.
No, we're not. Last, but certainly not least, the Western Athletic Conference, where the Grand Canyon Antelopes home loss to Louisville made up for that with a home victory over Steve Fisher's San Diego State team last night. Huge win by the Lopes at home. One of their biggest home victories ever, although they did beat San Diego State on the road last year also.
Yeah, Grand Canyon looking really good. They've struggled a little bit, but I think that's mostly reflective of their schedule. It's reflective of them a little bit, but mostly their schedule. But Utah Valley, they kind of got our attention with the win against BYU, but they haven't really looked all that good since then.
I disagree with you. They did lose the game against Washington State. They were right in there. The game against Utah, they were right in there. They did lose both those games, but I still like the way they're looking in terms of the WAC.
I was expecting them to win at Wazoo, and then the one game that kind of turned me off was that game against San Antonio. I mean, this is a bad San Antonio team, but they still won it.
They won the game against Utah State, a trip to Weber. Those are two teams that could give them some decent games, and maybe they can pick up a little bit there.
Okay,
Judging by their prior results,
yeah, I don't like them as much as I like New Mexico State or Grand Canyon.
Okay.
Judging by their prior results, I'd probably say San Antonio made more of an effort to try to slow the Wolverines down than other teams.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to pull this down here, and we want to go from there to a quick preview of some upcoming games, and then we'll move on to our top 10 lists, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
You're the host, but that's okay.
Okay. I guess we'll do that. We do have a couple, some pretty good games coming up in the next week or so here. Tomorrow night, Friday evening, one game I circled was Siena at Florida Gulf Coast. Siena, a little disappointing so far in Metro Atlantic, but I still like this game.
Disappointing.
Okay, very disappointing.
Only disappointing if you thought of them as an at-large candidate.
Very disappointing.
I
thought of them as an at-large candidate.
We did speak about some of these games already, so I'll just go over them very quickly, like East Tennessee State at Dayton, Ohio at Iona. But the team of the people, David, Saturday, 3 o'clock at Bryant.
And Bryant has had a spectacular year. The team of the people looking for their fourth straight or their fourth overall true road win. Yeah. I like their chances, and we need to fire up that rank machine. Go dancing or die. But and again, So hopefully they can win this game. It should be a big week for the team of the people. They get their second straight true road win. They get their banner. All is well.
And speaking about a game from last year, actually, John, one of Monmouth's biggest losses that kept them out of the tournament was a loss at Army right around this time of year. They get the revenge game at home this coming up on Saturday.
Yep, I think that was the second of 3 bad losses that ultimately kept Monmouth out of the tournament last year. They've already avenged the game against Canisius, so this would be their second chance to correct the wrong from last season.
A few more games here. Actually, just a side note here. Rutgers head coach Steve Pikel coming over from Stony Brook is on the road at Stony Brook on Saturday. I think it's a nice move by Steve to take this team on the road there against a America East squad.
Yeah,
One that may or may not have been contractually obligated.
yeah,
Still
but
a nice move.
yeah, it's still.
We've got the New Mexico State game coming up on Saturday. Another rivalry there.
Second leg of it. Love
Second
this.
leg of it. Yep. A couple other games. Valpo is at Missouri State. Akron at Gonzaga, and NJIT, a former team of the people, on the road at Kent State.
Should be a good one.
And huge game coming up Sunday in Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Hofstra and Kentucky.
Yes. Well, okay.
I just wish that NJIT game were on a Sunday, though, because that's only going to be about 4.5 hours from where I am.
Yeah.
One other game coming up next week, John, and this is in your backyard. I want to bring it up. It coming up on Tuesday afternoon, actually. Texas Southern at Cincinnati. Can Mike Davis pull off the upset?
Not the way that Cincinnati has been playing this year.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I was hoping we can get some love there for the upset. Not going to happen, apparently. But let's go ahead and move on to our top 10 list. And this is something else new that we are going to be debuting right here, possibly.
The top 10 isn't new, but this version of it is.
Are you seeing me?
No.
I'm seeing a black screen.
Yeah, it's just a black screen.
Okay, well, we seem to be having a little bit of technical problems right now here, but I will work
think
on
you're
that.
frozen here, Chad.
I
I
think.
thought we were done with Google.
Yeah.
Can you hear me at least?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, well then let's discuss a few other topics here while I try to figure out what's going on with my computer here. But if not, what we're going to do is what we were going to do is show the top 10 on the screen. Since we can't show it on the screen as I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my computer right here, I'm going to start reading them off here. And what we
Well, that's going to happen when you have like 30
There
different
it is.
titles
It's
up.
on the screen.
There it is. All right, here we go. December 8, 2016, Under the Radar Top 10. What we've actually done this week is I took all 3 of our top 10 ballots, ranked them against each other, kind of like they would do an AP Top 25 or the like, and came up with our consensus top 10. And drum roll, please, the number 1 team among Under the Radar is the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders.
And rightfully so. Very, very good this year so far.
Where there's a little bit more dramas at number 2, but we've got Valparaiso coming in here at number 2.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
And at number
3 is.
Especially given tonight's results.
Yeah. Wichita State. I still really like this team. I personally think they're better than Valpo even if their profile doesn't quite show it yet. I do like them. I think that they're going to be just fine.
And I would say they're probably the most likely of the 3 to be ranked. Not necessarily the best, but just the most likely.
But I think all 3 of these teams are still at-large bid candidates, serious at-large bid candidates.
I agree with that.
Not in a situation where you've got to win all but one game the rest of the way, where you can slip up a few times and still make it in.
Right. Not so much. Well, Valpo should win the rest of them, but, Okay.
Number 4, we have UNC Wilmington, another team that we have very high on.
Yeah.
Another team that may not lose more than a few more games the rest of the way.
Right, yeah.
And at number 5, the Ohio University Bobcats out of the MAC, still very good, although not that certain that the rest of the MAC is as strong as I thought it would be, which means they may not have the chances in conference that I thought they would get.
Although part of me thinks that the Colonial is going to cannibalize Wilmington more than the MAC will for Ohio.
Well, you got teams like Akron, Eastern Michigan. I think the MAC may beat up Ohio, John. I don't think I agree with you. Number 6, the Monmouth Hawks coming in.
Somebody liked them a lot. I voted them kind of low.
Very solid rating. John, I think you had them pretty high, as did I. I had them actually even higher than this, but you want to make their case, John?
I think I originally had them number 6, but I did gradually start to move them up because even though they couldn't cash in the opportunities against Syracuse or South Carolina, they've been pretty consistent.
I agree with you. I think this team is definitely moving up, and at 7, right behind them, the Chattanooga Mocs really need to find a way to get some more meat on their profile that they may not have the chances to get.
Well, they'll get East Tennessee State as a couple chances this year.
Yeah, and again, I think that there's enough there if they don't lose anymore, which is a horrible thing to say, but that should be. And
speaking about East Tennessee State, right behind them, these two teams from the SoCon, which may end up cannibalizing each other and requiring putting only one team in the field at the end of the day. At number 9, we do have the Arkansas State team that, David, I know I guess you both are probably higher on than I am. I had them right outside my top 10, actually. I'm not quite fully sold on them yet, I guess.
Well, there's a reason why I wanted to highlight the Sun Belt, although given the events of tonight, we did bring Conference USA up to the forefront. So Arkansas State, you want to talk about a conference that cannibalizes itself, look no further than the Sun Belt.
Last team to make our rankings at number 10, the Akron Zips, slipping in there at number 10 out of the MAC. I'm also going to bring up our honorable mentions. These were 4 other teams that did receive votes in at least one of our brackets: Fort Wayne, College of Charleston, Tennessee State, and Rice. David, I think that was your ballot, had Rice in it.
Yeah, it did. And I know that they lost in spectacular fashion, but it's one of only 2 losses. And I just like how they've played so far this year.
And I'm the one, honestly, that had that College of Charleston team in there. I'm really starting to keep a serious eye on them. I think that they are, if somebody's going to beat Wilmington in the Colonial, that may be the team to keep an eye on.
I have a feeling I'm the only one that had Tennessee State on the ballot because I think I had them number 8 or 9.
Yeah, Tennessee State's kind of slipping off. I think Dave and I were both kind of disappointed with what happened in the Vanderbilt game, but they keep winning. They'll get right back up in there.
Yeah, they will. And they got a big game coming up, like you said. So,
well, I guess on that note, let's move to any final thoughts. John, let me start with you.
I don't think I really have any other thoughts other than what I had touched on earlier between Idaho and Washington State.
Hi, David.
Just to reiterate, one of the bigger games of the weekend that no one other than us will talk about because no one is as smart as we are is this Wilmington Hofstra or Wilmington Bonnies game.
One other game that's coming up that I will highlight is that as you are watching this, you will all know the final score from. But right as we're recording this now, Texas Arlington at St. Mary's is tipping off. St. Mary's not under the radar, but Texas Arlington has a chance to pick up a huge win here tonight. So if they do, David's going to write about it in tomorrow's news and notes, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
But
on that, top the top 10 list if they do beat St. Mary's.
Yeah.
On that note, the final thing for tonight, as both myself and John Slika say goodbye, we are going to leave David Griggs on as he's going to now bring us an interview with Kermit Davis. David, you have him there on the couch, don't you?
Actually, yeah. I mean, he isn't quite in here yet. He's on his way.
Okay, well, so what I need everybody to do is just keep watching.
Yes.
You're going to see kind of like a circle and a black screen come up. Just keep watching and keep watching. Eventually, you will see that interview, correct?
Yes.
All right. Then for John and David, I'm Chad. Take care. We'll talk to you again real soon.